Two prefaces to this interview with Barry Young, the whistleblower from New Zealand, who is appearing in court in Wellington on December the 11th. My request to you all is, if you can, please appear with him in the Wellington District Court from 9 a.m. on December the 11th, 2025. Please support Barry Young. And that appearance is explained in the following interview. The second thing is that the sound quality with Barry Young's machines seem to be very compromised. I can't tell you more than that because we can't identify it. We know the police uplifted his equipment when they arrested him, totally falsely, for simply doing what any whistleblower has the right to do, which is exposing criminality. And that is a right, and one could argue it's a civic duty to do so. This is a man who has never had any issues with the law, but his equipment was uplifted. He was put in prison for 2 nights simply for telling New Zealanders that he had built the database of the people's data, a pay-per-dose database, which showed excess deaths. For that, for the last 2 years, he has been going through a prolonged, elongated trial, and we will hear more about that shortly. The third thing is this. Andrew Bridgen posted this just after we completed this interview. He posted it on November the 16th. We did the interview on November the 12th. Andrew writes, the Telegraph runs with the story of Clare Craig Path court case to force the United Kingdom Health Security Agency, UK HSA, to release anonymised data of those who died after vaccination. Andrew writes, things are turning now. We must keep up the pressure to expose the truth. And if we have a quick look at the headline of the Telegraph article, it reads, government withholding data that may link COVID jab to excess deaths. The UK Health Security Agency argued that releasing figures would lead to distress or anger of bereaved relatives if connection were discovered. The public health watchdog has been accused of a cover-up after refusing to publish data that could link the COVID vaccine to excess deaths in the United Kingdom. I would argue that exactly that is what has happened here in New Zealand. Had the Barry Young data been released to the public in the early days of this coalition government, when both Barry and I reached out directly to the person who had just been appointed as the Deputy Prime Minister, Winston Peters, to say that we had the evidence of excess deaths from the vaccines under Jacinda Ardern, to offer that evidence to Winston Peters, had all of that been publicised, many lives could have been saved here in New Zealand. Have a listen, see what you think. We cannot make these mistakes around the world, in New Zealand, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, America, when the data is there that proves the dangers within these COVID vaccines and the mRNA platform itself. Have a listen to Barry Young and please support him if you can.
We have some stuff that we've talked about before, but the new things, the new revelations, obviously the police are ignoring or breaking the law, relevant to McSkimming and Costa being stood down now. And, you know, it just shows, highlights that the levels of corruption are out the gate for the police. It's just unbelievable. Yep. As someone who is a law-abiding citizen, I'm not saying was, I still am, never done anything wrong, and had no awareness of the police at all. Because why would you? If you're law-abiding, you wouldn't know what the police are doing or what the police are like. But now I'm exposed to it. I'm just seeing the corruption at the coal face, and it is absolutely unbelievable. It's astonishing how bad they are, and it's great that this these revelations are coming out now against McSkimming and Costa, and it just shows how wide and how deep it is to go all the way up, all the way to the very, very top, to be involved with all of this, all of the corruption. And the police are meant to be appropriate authorities, as you know, under the law. They are designated as appropriate authorities for the Protected Disclosures Act, the Whistleblowers Act. So we're supposed to go to them if a whistleblower has any concerns. Now, do you think they're acting as appropriate authorities in these cases? No, but definitely not. So it's like they are so corrupt, and they are not acting in good faith, and are not acting as they are meant to. They're not being a police force that we were led to believe that they should be.
I might, Baz, I know we're just talking before we start the official interview, but if you don't mind, I'm going to include that bit in the interview. Your sound is still getting a little bit interfered
Are you
with.
recording it?
Yeah. The sound is still being a little interfered with, and I'm going to give people notice that we've had to try, 2 computers and 3 headsets and 3 different rooms to try to get the sound okay for Barry. I am absolutely convinced that they've done something in taking your computer that fiddles with the sound. But let's begin. Barry Young, I have not had a catch up with you for a while, and I was unwell at the time of your last court appearance in Wellington. But you remain the person about whom I am most asked. How's Barry? When is he next in court? What's happening? So that's where we're going to begin this interview. Everybody asks me, and not just from within New Zealand, but from overseas as well. You have made such a marker on the world stage because you were the whistleblower who first said, I'm compiling a government database, and it's a pay-per-dose database. It's my database, mine, Barry Young's, because I've built it and I maintain it. And the data that I'm compiling belongs not to the New Zealand government. It belongs to the New Zealand people. And because in that database, I am seeing clear evidence of excess deaths of New Zealanders since the rollout by Jacinda Ardern, who now wants to be the head of the UN, a leading world criminal, Jacinda Ardern, who has made New Zealand what I believe is a crime scene because she forced this poison on New Zealanders. You said, because of what I'm seeing, I will do the honourable thing and I will put out the truth to New Zealanders to decide. And in the time since we put it out 2 years ago, Barry, in that time, the jabs have continued, and the Ministry of Health has claimed it has no money to help people who are jab injured. It has limited resources. And we believe it's spent close to $3 million. We have clear OIA evidence from a year ago. It was spent $2 million trying to silence the truths you were wanting to put out while maintaining there's nothing in that data. There's nothing to worry about. Mm-hmm. Why would they spend that much money? And why would they intimidate people overseas? And why would they continue to not speak up about the jabs and the poisons and the maiming and the excess deaths that is in your database? So welcome, Barry Young. It's been quite a ride, has it not?
It has. Yeah, it certainly has. Thank you for the introduction. It has been a while. So yeah, where do you want to start? The current estimates for the legal bill are somewhere between $2 and $3 million. And it would be far, far higher if I had gone and got legal aid and engaged a lawyer. It would be it's probably would be double that if I had legal aid. So I'm just trying, and plus I'm trying to save the taxpayer, the poor, innocent New Zealand taxpayer, a bit of money by not having a lawyer. But that's only partly the reason why I'm self-representing. I'm doing it myself because it's as I'm seeing it, as it's been revealed to me. I'm at the coalface, so I am privy to everything, and it's been a journey of discovery. Like we mentioned before, I had no idea what the police were like, having had no dealings with them previously, and now with all of these revelations currently coming out, it's apparent, and it's going to be apparent to the New Zealand public how wide and how deep the levels of corruption are. And I am seeing it firsthand. I am at the cold face of this. And so it's a good thing to be self-represented. It's got its benefits and it's got its drawbacks, but seeing it firsthand is just absolutely mind-blowing. And they are breaking the law. They are ignoring laws. It's actually astonishing how long this trial has gone on, and there's no sign of a trial date yet. Even this is just dragging on and on and on. It's probably going to be the longest criminal trial in New Zealand history if it actually goes to trial. It's now actually, I worked it out, 710 days since I was arrested. Can you believe that? 710 days. So I compared it with a few things which in world history which were done in less than 710 days. The Empire State Building was built in 410 days. Falklands War was 74 days. The Pentagon building took 492 days. The whole entire Apollo program, from the first crewed Apollo launch, Apollo 7, to Apollo 11 moon landing, 651 days. So the Apollo program was less than this trial. That's how long this has gone on. So it is just absolutely ridiculous. Thousands and thousands of hours of police time.
Yes.
And it's
wasted, totally wasted.
An employment dispute, completely wasted. And yeah, how I know they're breaking the law is just by the lack of disclosures. They're ignoring me. Even the registrar at the Wellington District Court, they don't reply to my emails, which I'm asking to. It's my legal right to request evidence, and they're denying it. I've made 5 IPCA complaints now about the officer in charge of my case, and not one of them, not a single one, has been investigated.
And this is the independent, it's
Police
called
Complaints
Complaints Authority, which is normally, it looks away from so much wrongdoing. But with what you referred to, I'll just bring people up to speed. There is a story breaking across New Zealand as we speak today, which is November the 12th, saying that Andrew Costa, who was in charge of police under Jacinda Ardern, and who was in charge of coming after you, of the police who came after you and smashed your door down and took your equipment and put you in prison simply because you were doing what whistleblowers are meant to be doing under protected legislation. You were notifying people of something that was wrong within the data that you'd come across. And instead of putting into play the protected whistleblower legislation and saying this data must come out for the good of all New Zealanders, the cops came to your door. You and I were both threatened with prison. I was threatened with them coming to uplift all our equipment, so we couldn't do any truth-telling either. And it all roots back now to this Andrew Costa, Jacinda Ardern liaison, which is now being shown today in a breaking story, is built on corruption. So I'll just bring people up to speed there. And then the Independent Police Complaints Authority, IPCA, they have been no help to you either? Just tell us what you were saying before about that.
No, absolutely not. Maybe they were too busy investigating Costa and McSkimming. But yes, I laid 5 complaints about the officer in charge of the case. So they've just fobbed me off constantly, saying that it's a court matter, it's a matter for the courts. But there is clear and obvious, that the officer in charge has not performed his duties as a responsible police officer. And one of the examples is disclosing data, disclosing evidence. He is meant to disclose all evidence, even if it's harmful for the prosecution. And he's just completely ignored that. For example, when I did my protected disclosure, when I sent the email to the executive leadership team at Health New Zealand, Ministry of Health, that between that time and my arrest, there was a lot of stuff going on, obviously, at the ministry at the very highest levels, meetings, emails, discussions, actions taken. One of those actions taken was to disable my account, which happened almost immediately. And
your account at the Ministry of Health, you were contracted to the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Health New Zealand were my employees, Te Whāora, but they disabled my access almost immediately. And all I got from them, from the prosecution, was an email confirming that my access had been revoked at a certain time. So what the laws of evidence, what I thought would give me is the background to that, all the evidence that went on in the background, all the meetings, all the emails, all the discussions, to actually come to that conclusion to disable my account. Now,
your sound is going funny, so I'm just, Barry, your sound's just going funny. Interesting time for it to go odd. But basically, that's basic discovery in a legal case. If you had a lawyer, would apply for discovery of the documents, of the discussions, of everything that led to that decision. And so, and
already
this would,
done.
Yeah. And of course, if you had a government-funded lawyer, you said earlier you're trying to save the taxpayer by doing your own case, that government-funded lawyer would spend hours trying to get those documents from the other side, or they would be honoured. But your
Of course it would. And they'd be charging $600 an hour to do that. Yeah. So it's all part of the game, isn't it? If you've got your legal aid lawyer, he's happy to clip the ticket at $600 an hour. He's happy to spend hours and hours doing that. And basically, he's going to get no further forward than what I've done under the Criminal Disclosures Act. Mm-hmm. They're just completely ignoring the law or misinterpreting it. Another example of the same officer in charge, the same police officer, he was in my court hearing, my pre-trial hearing, the last one that you were unable to attend. He was there taking notes, writing them down in the public gallery. And meanwhile, the judge denied me a transcript of the proceedings, the whole entire proceedings, the 2 days that it went on. I've been denied a transcript. Now, I should be entitled to it under the Criminal Proceedings Access to Court Documents Act 2009. One of the rules is if any evidence given orally at the committal hearing or the trial has been transcribed, I am entitled to its transcript of that evidence. So the judge invented a whole new test during the pre-trial, which was the exceptional circumstances test. He said he would only provide a transcript in exceptional circumstances, which didn't apply to me.
And was there no precedent?
Rewritten the law.
There was no precedent for that? There was nothing, the judge just came up with this himself?
No. There's no way. He just came up with it. He just came up with this concept called the exceptional circumstances test. There's no basis for it in law. He's just denied me a transcript. Meanwhile, what happened was with this officer in charge of it, he's busy making notes. I haven't got anything to validate those notes. He's then submitted those notes as evidence for the prosecution. So the prosecution can rely on a police constable's notes that he made during the trial, and yet I have nothing to compare that with. I've been denied a transcript of the trial. This is not North Korea. This is New Zealand. Where's the justice in that? How can you do that? It's just like I say. I mean, it's off the charts, the level of corruption. And if they're that desperate to be doing things, these dirty little tricks that they do, they must be really desperate. And it's not what I expected from New Zealand. It really isn't. I thought New Zealand was better than this.
The corruption is profound. And that is showing how much, not just the police, but their overlords, the globalist puppet politicians, including Luxon's government, want to cover this. Yep. And I want to cover that off early on. I think my disappointment, and we've remained largely silent on this, but we spent 8 weeks after the 2023 election, Barry. We spent 8 weeks going through your evidence and the database and making sure right off the cuff that there were going to be no names of Kiwis that were compromised. So I just want to go back to that point. This is why the government says it's gone after you so hard, because New Zealand privacy is breached. So we need to deal with that point straight up here. Has there been one name of one New Zealander that has come out from the database that you published? Has there been one name that this government, spending nearly $3 million, has been able to discover?
Plus. So no, there's been not one single name that they can identify from the data. Not one single name.
So I want people to understand that when we said you were putting out anonymized data that protected New Zealanders' names and details, we held to our promise. We held to our promise. And New Zealanders must understand this means the whole reason they arrested you, put you in prison, and have spent all this time going after you with millions of our taxpayers' dollars. It is absolutely false. Yep.
Yes. Well, the thing is that the data itself, and maybe a lot of people don't realize this, it was a financial database. There were no contact details on there whatsoever. There were no phone numbers. There were no email addresses. There were no physical addresses. So its value to anybody is negligible. It was not a contactable database. So basically everyone's data was safe anyway. There's no way anyone could get in touch with you. And they claimed that there was a release. There's still press articles on the internet about this, about 12,000 names which were breached. And you can still see them online if you just do a Google search for 12,000 data breach New Zealand. You will see that the stories, New Zealand Herald stuff, RNZ, they've all got them still on there. Now, the prosecution were forced to admit that 12,000 names was baseless. They gave me evidence that after months and months of careful forensic examination of the data, they could only find 6 potential names of people who could be identified. 2 of them were public figures, so could be identified anyway. And the rest of them could only be identified by existing public data, which was already on the internet. There you go. So all they had was 6 names, which they had to use, which were already on the internet anyway. So they could not have got those names from my database itself. They had to use public records as well to identify them, and only 6. It's a bit of a come down from 12,000, isn't it? And yet those stories are still on the internet.
It's shocking. I think at this point we need to also put out to the world that there is another massive story breaking, this time in the UK, because Donald Trump is going after the BBC for lying, for distorting one of his speeches. We won't go into the facts here. And Andrew Bridgen in the UK has also just put out this morning, which is the 12th of November, he has said that one of his speeches was doctored. And that is unprecedented, a speech from within the House of Parliament, the mother of parliaments in the UK. So the BBC is now being accused of all sorts of things, and not least among the accusations that they covered up the truth on the COVID jabs and what was really going on. So I would say at this stage, we've got our New Zealand police being exposed for their corruption, and we would have Radio New Zealand and TVNZ, the 2 government sources of misinformation in this country, of covering up and lies like the BBC, they should be very worried about what they've put out about your data and the scaremongering and the lies and the fact that they have never supported you, Barry. So I'm just going to leave that there, but they are put on notice with this interview that they too have left out the truth and covered up the truth and misrepresented the truth to the New Zealand people on your data.
Yes. Well, it's Health New Zealand who instigated it. They are the main source of all of this. They're prima facie culpable for all of this. They instigated the police investigation. They only told the police. They goosed up the risks, the harms, which there's been no evidence provided of any harms whatsoever. So they completely exaggerated the entire thing to the extent that they sent 8 armed officers around to bust up my house. That's how much they they goosed it up.
Yeah.
And if you look back, if you take a step back and look at it, it's an employment issue. It's an employment court issue at best. Somebody allegedly took some data that he created from work. He took a copy of it. That's it. That's an employment dispute.
Yeah.
And, stuff like that happens all the time anyway. How many times do you copy a document from work to work on at home on your home laptop or whatever? It happens. And the facts are, the actions that I am alleged to have done do not warrant 8 armed cops coming into my house. It's that simple. And the only reason why they would do that is if there was something that they were trying to suppress, something that they don't want the people to know about. And that is obviously what the data shows.
I remind people, your sound's still a bit wobbly, so if I come in, it's sometimes because it's just going a bit blurry. But I remind people that you were doing this for the people of New Zealand out of concern. You said to me in our first interview, I could not bear to see the deaths, even of young New Zealanders that were clearly deaths from the jabs, and I couldn't sit on that data. I had to offer the truth to the people. So you were doing this from the highest motivation, they from the lowest motivation. When you said it showed nothing that harmed, what you meant is your data shows nothing that harms the privacy of New Zealanders. Now, what does it show, Barry? Let's talk about some of the extremes you found.
That's the perception of harm,
But what does it show for people who are, because we know that they shadow banned our earlier interviews. They tried to suppress it everywhere in the world. We're going to put those out again, even though I was threatened with fines, you were threatened with fines. We were both threatened with imprisonment if we kept those up. But what does it show, the data?
It shows unequivocally that the vaccines are causing harms far in excess of COVID ever could. They are lethal. Far in excess of the deaths from COVID. There's a lot of data from OIAs and stuff like that, aside from the data from the database, that show that the COVID itself, the COVID vaccine, people who are vaccinated die more from COVID than unvaccinated people. And I got that from an OIA. So the vaccine itself is provably does not work. Another OIA I submitted was about pericarditis and myocarditis. So I wanted to find out the rates before the vaccine and after the vaccine. Now, there's a study from Penn University of and a synopsis of all the studies around the world, which showed that the vaccinated people had twice as much myocarditis than unvaccinated people. So if you're vaccinated, you've got twice the risk of myocarditis. And that's in a Penn State University report. That's basically like saying it's government data. That's accepted by the scientific community. They are admitting that if you're vaccinated, you've got twice the risk of myocarditis, and that in itself is unbelievable. That that they are given this in plain sight, and yet they're still going ahead with the vaccinations. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So my OIA was right. Okay, I want to find out how many people in New Zealand have had myocarditis, pericarditis, who are vaccinated and unvaccinated. So I sent an OIA. I'll just read it to you.
For people overseas, that's like a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information request, or an official information, we call it here in New Zealand. But yes, just keep going. What did you get back from that?
Yeah. Okay, so I sent the request for the following dates between 2021, when the vaccine was first introduced, and now 2025. Incidence and rates of myopericarditis for COVID vaccinated individuals who had one or more vaccinations versus unvaccinated individuals who have never had a COVID vaccine. So what I got back from them, and this is astonishing. This is like, it goes against a lot of legislation. It says the information reported to Health New Zealand from hospitals does not include information about the vaccines received by that patient in their lifetime. There are other data sets which hold information about vaccines provided in New Zealand, and this is the government's, and this is from Health New Zealand. However, there would be a substantial amount of work required by skilled staff with the expertise to use these databases in order to produce the incidences and rates of myocarditis and pericarditis for COVID vaccinated individuals. By reference to hospital discharge information, this exercise would require new information to be created through the application of complex skill and judgment. Therefore, my request was denied. Now, that in itself is breaking the law, because under the Medicines Act 1981, sections 23, 36, and 41, the sponsor and the ministry are required to maintain systems for post-market surveillance, which is applicable to the COVID vaccine. They need to investigate adverse reactions and report the safety data. So they've completely ignored the Medicines Act, and they are not monitoring incidences of myocarditis and pericarditis. And that's from an Official Information Act. That's from the government. So what are they actually doing? They don't care if it's causing harms. They don't care if it's causing deaths. What is this? What system are we living in?
It's absolutely wicked. It is wicked. That's a really important Official Information Act request, and that answer is so. Let's remind people, this is while they are at the same time spending nearly $3 million trying to silence the truths in the people's data that Barry Young was wanting to put up. Yep. And they are saying, oh, it's too much effort to track and trace. So just take us to some of the examples of clusters. When you and I were preparing in those 8 weeks before we put it out, and we got experts in, you ended up talking to 2 leading epidemiologists in America, thanks to RFKJ, who's now, President Trump's right-hand man on health. In fact, you ended up having a call directly with RFKJ, which we're very grateful for. So Barry, you do have protection up to the highest levels. And I think we need to put a warning out here. Given what happened to Charlie Kirk, there is a warning from AI saying that Barry Young very much needs protection. And I would love to collect funds. Barry won't accept any money because that would compromise his position as a whistleblower, which is why he's living on the smell of an oily rag, aren't you, Barry, on almost nothing while you do all these years of work to defend your case. But I would love to raise funds for you to be able to have security detail. So given what's happened to Charlie Kirk, I would remind anybody who wants to hurt you, you are linked in at the highest levels of the Trump administration. You have already spoken to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We have links for you into Jay Bhattacharya if we need to, and other links into the highest levels of health under the Trump administration. But I can tell anybody, if you have nefarious ideas about silencing Barry Young's voice, you look at Candace Owens in the way she's defending Charlie Kirk, and there wouldn't just be me, there would be many of us in New Zealand who would do the same with Barry Young if anything happened to you. You are a really treasured resource in this country, treasured for your courage and treasured for your speaking out. They'd better leave you alone. Do you have any feeling about that, Barry? Would you accept funds that would raise security detail for you?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, it's New Zealand at the end of the day, and I don't feel any danger here. I think people generally are good. There's no one with any malice or ever shown any malice towards me in real life. I mean, I get trolls and stuff on Twitter, X, all the time, but there's New Zealand is a beautiful country. It's like most people are really, really nice. I still believe that. Of course, you have the corruption and stuff in the government and the police, which is wrong. And, we will get round to that. We will sort it out. We have to. And there's a whole WEF thing and all the rest of it, and the WHO, and you see that Luxon's a puppet and all the rest of them, and Winston Peters is nothing. He's a damn squib. He hasn't done what he promised. All that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's New Zealand is a great country, and I mean, even Winston Peters had his windows smashed by an angry mob. It's like, well, that was terrible. That was a really, really bad thing to happen. Shouldn't happen, but his life wasn't in debt. He had no security basically, and he's taken it fine. He hasn't got like excess of bodyguards and stuff like that. So why would I? I would just send the wrong message, and I don't think I'm worthy of that, and I don't think I'm that big a risk. I'm that big a threat, and yeah, if they did try and silence me, it would blow up in their face, and it would be a story.
It would blow up in their faces.
And there was no way. There's no way they would want to do that. I mean, all I'm doing is I built a database. I'm trying to show people, as my public duty as a government worker, I have duties and responsibilities to highlight things which I'm seeing in the workplaces. It's not only the Protected Disclosures Act, Liz, it's the Health and Safety at Work Act. It's employment law. As a working in the health industry, the health sector, I should be obliged to report on any wrongdoings that I see, any harms, anything which is harming New Zealand people. I should have a right to say that, not just a protected disclosure, but a right under the Health and Safety at Work Act and the Employment Act to highlight these issues that I'm seeing. And they are extremely obvious. Anyone could see them. It's like a reasonable grounds test that they use for the Protected Disclosures Act. The reasonable grounds are what any ordinary person would see who saw the same data as me. Not an expert epidemiologist professor, just an ordinary guy, health worker, and an ordinary person like you, Liz, who saw it. I didn't give it to you, right? There's no exchange of any files whatsoever.
Nothing.
Or data. I did not give you a thing. I just showed you a laptop screen, and it blew your mind.
It did.
Right? Those are the reasonable grounds. That's all you need to show for a protected disclosure. And since then, the police provided me the evidence, which from Excel spreadsheets, which they gave to an epidemiologist, which is completely wrong anyway, because that's not the test under the Protected Disclosures Act. It has to be a reasonable person, not a professor of epidemiology. So they've got the act completely wrong. So they give these spreadsheets to him. He didn't even look at them. He said, I tried to open it in Excel and I couldn't read past, it wasn't, Excel couldn't cope with the volume of data. So that was his excuse. So he didn't even look at the data. All he did was write a report and a statement criticizing my lack of experience, my lack of epidemiology, and everyone else who was involved, and saying that he couldn't have come to that conclusion because he wasn't qualified. That's absolutely bullshit. That does not make sense, and that does not make sense in law. And no. I do have a lot of experience in data. I know what data should look like. I know how to spot anomalies in data. I know how to spot data errors and integrity of data, and that the whole, I spent 20 years as a DBA. I'm pretty good at spotting things which shouldn't be there, mistakes, errors, that sort of thing. So since the police provided me with that Excel file, the same file they gave to the expert, I've then done a gold standard epidemiologists what the same tests that they use are supposed to use, using RStudio and Unix and code and stuff like that, and come up with an edge standardized cohort analysis on the data. And it's incredible what it shows. It's absolutely incredible. And this should all come out in court in the pre-trial on the 11th of December. And it is like, it's mind-blowing. I mean, the stuff that I showed you that time, that was only the tip of the iceberg. There's far, far more to it than this. And it could be batch specific. It's definitely related to age bands.
Age bands. Your sound's going a bit funny. Wow.
Age
So what does that mean? Yeah. Age bands. You can see ages that have been seriously affected.
Yeah. If you
wow.
Yep, you do an age-stratified standardized mortality ratio across New Zealand, the population as a baseline between, say, 2015 and 2019 to get what the mortality rate for each age group in New Zealand was before COVID. Mm-hmm. So say, for example, you've got age groups 1 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, and so on, up to age 100 plus. So each of those bands, you have a mortality rate within that, so that you have your pre-COVID mortality rate, and then you have your post-COVID, your post-vaccine mortality rates. So it's the same age bands, you're just applying the mortality rates of vaccinated people to those age bands. Mm. And it's a standard epidemiological practice. And you get all sorts of maths and statistics from that. You can do a forest plot, and it shows that the SMR, the standard mortality rate, goes up monotonously with age. So the older you get, the more at risk you are. So it's not, the vaccine does not save the elderly. It's absolutely the opposite of that. It affects the elderly more than any other group.
And Barry, this is how we were sold it by Jacinda. You've got to take this to save the elderly. And then when the elderly were dying off and it was shown in your data, we had trolls coming on saying, oh, it's only old people dying. This made no sense whatsoever. But the point is, the jab was showing excess deaths.
The 11th of November, I just want to highlight that the old people is, to me, these are the people that we remember for Remembrance Day. The 11th of November, yesterday, was Remembrance Armistice Day. These are people who are, 100 plus now. These are people who survived World War II. So they survived Hitler, and these are our heroes. A lot of them fought for us, and we're just we're treating them like nothing, like they don't exist. So to me, they're special. They're very special people. So they survived Hitler, but they don't survive Pfizer. So what's up with that? And I've just got some quick stats here. So among people who are age 65 plus, there are 31,922 observed deaths within my group. Compared to the 2015-2019 baseline, which is Statistics New Zealand data, it should be 18,442 expected. So that's an SMR, standardized mortality rate, 1.73. That's 1.73 times higher than what it should be after COVID vaccines. That means there are 13,000 excess deaths. And that's the data. That's mathematically provable.
Other stats, can you go into more of that? This is really important for New Zealanders to hear. Can we look at other age bands?
Yeah, you can do it. Yep, you can do it by age-stratified mortality rates. It goes.
While you're bringing that up, Barry,
I'm not going to give you actual data here. I'm just going to have to be careful because this
I
is going to go.
appreciate that.
This is going to come out of the trial. So you've got age groups 5 to 9 up until about 35. It's expected. Your vaccine is not causing any excess deaths, any noticeable ones. So the young ones are pretty much okay, but we don't know what they're going to be like in years to come. Okay, yes. So up until about 40, it lines up. It should be a 1-to-1 relationship. So you've got your baseline, your pre-COVID vaccine, and your post-COVID. That should be 1-to-1. So every person or every ratio in each age group before COVID should align with the ratio post-COVID vaccine.
I'll say that again because the sound is going. So every ratio should line up with the COVID vaccine to post the COVID vaccine. They should be the same.
Yeah.
And that is
exactly
we say
that's
should.
why you have a baseline.
Yeah, and we say should if the government's maintaining its lie that the jabs were safe and they didn't compromise New Zealand health, then those two things should line up. But after 40, they don't line up, do they, in your data?
That's the whole thing about SMR. That's exactly right. That's the whole process of a study, vaccine study. Look at an SMR, and it has to be 1. It has to be around 1. So that just proves to them that the vaccine isn't killing people. That's all they need to do to show that the vaccine is safe and effective. In SMR around 1, great, you've got approval. Now with the data, it's shown that SMR's 1.73. That's 73% worse than it should be. That's huge. That's off the charts. So with the data, you see up until 40, we're okay. It's about 1-to-1. So from 40 to 44, it's up to about 1.2, 40, 49, 1.2, 50, 54, 1.3, 50, 54, 1.4, 55 to 59, about 1.5. That's 1.5 times more mortality in that age group than pre-COVID vaccine. Yes. So pre-2020. All right. So 60 to 64, it's about 1.6. 65 to 79, it's about 1.65. 70 to 74, did I just say that? 75 to 79, it's about 1.7. And then you've got a big one here, 80 to 84, it's about 1.75. And it goes up as a staircase. It goes gradually up and up and up. So the worst affected are the oldest. You got 80, 84, 1.8, 90 to 94, 1.8, 95 to 99, almost 2. It's over 2.
It's double the death rate.
Double the death rate. Yeah.
And I remind people just to...
These are the people who survived World War II, and we're killing them off at twice the rate as what we had pre-vaccine. So all these people sitting around in their old people's homes getting their COVID jabs are twice as likely to die now.
And I remind people that we were sold this jab because it would save the old people. That was the guilt that was used on us. And I would also remind people, Barry, that this saves the government a lot in having to pay money to older people, such as superannuation. If you really look at it cynically, we can't go there, but I'll just put that on the table as a possible motivation. We don't know that, and we won't know, and we can't know until there's a full inquiry. But that is what we need with your data. This needs to come out into the public arena now. This is data up to when? 2023, and it's data that needs to be put on the table because there is probably no other country, Barry, where there is just one database operator, DBA, which is what you were an analyst, who was operating across the whole country. In America, there would have been many people doing what you were doing, so it would have been siloed. Whereas we have actually in your database a study of a whole country and the effect of the Pfizer jab on a whole country. Am I correct there, Barry?
Yeah, it wasn't the entire the population of New Zealand. It was only one system, but it was one which had very good recording of data. The data itself is very high fidelity. It means that because it was financial, each record on there had to be audited and checked and validated. Yeah. So it's very good quality data. And it just happened to be fate that made it that way. And yeah, I built it, I maintained it, and it is, to all intents and purposes, it is my data. And even Marky, who acknowledged my protected disclosure.
I'll have to get you to say that again. I'll have to get you to say that again. And even, what was the name? Because it didn't come through.
Which bit?
Just to say, you started off saying, and even
Health New Zealand.
Yeah.
You're breaking up as well. Sorry.
Interesting. The sound issues. Was the name Margie Apper? I think you might have used that. She was the head of Health New Zealand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. When I sent my protected disclosure email, Margie Apper allegedly replied, acknowledging it as a protected disclosure. And she called it my data. She said, let's look at your data and see what you're seeing. So she called it my data. So yes, to all intents and purposes, every row on that database was put there by me. So that they're claiming that somehow I obtained a benefit from this in disclosing it. And I'd like to know what the benefit was. There's no benefit in that. So the crime they're charging me with is just ridiculous. It's absolutely ludicrous.
I can verify that, Barry.
They have to prove I obtained a benefit, but they can't.
Yep. I can absolutely verify here that no matter when people have given me money for you, you would not accept any money. You simply would not accept it. And people were coming up to me at meetings we had and giving money. And then what I did was open a side account and we were able to pay a lawyer early on before you decided to do your own case. So there was one payment from Free NZ Media, might have been a couple, directly to a lawyer who was doing some work into the case. But apart from that, you would never take personal funds, and I know how much you have suffered. I know how much you have gone through. And the other thing, when you mentioned earlier, Barry, that when you first showed it to me, as a journalist, of course I said to you, could you copy this, or could I get a memory stick? Can I please take this home so I can study this, so I know what all the angles of the story will be? And I remember clearly your reply. You said, I cannot give it to you. I can let you have a look at it to verify that what I'm telling you is the truth, but I cannot hand it over. And of course, afterwards, I realized the legal importance of that. But you were crystal clear on what you were doing. I wanted to mention one other thing. You mentioned Winston Peters. I still to this day feel very sad for Winston. He's on the wrong side of history on the Barry Young data. What we did after 8 weeks of going to and fro on making sure that we were ready to go to the world with it, that it was absolutely right, the track that you were on, that it did show excess deaths. You and I agreed that I would go round to his house, I would knock on his door, and at the same time ring him. He'd always picked up the phone to me. And in that call, when he didn't answer his door, I said to him clearly, Winston, you can put this data out. You will get the world credit for it. As the Deputy Prime Minister in the new government of New Zealand, you will be the man who's put on Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan and all the other sites for being a world hero in bringing down the lies, in exposing the lies put out by our New Zealand government under Jacinda Ardern and by Pfizer. And this will be the domino that will bring down all the lies about the jabs. We have the evidence. Barry will go through it with you in detail. You may take all the credit for it. I said that on my message to Winston. He never replied to any of my calls. Did he ever pick up on your calls, Barry?
Absolutely not. I think he's a consummate politician, Winston. He says one thing and does another. It's I realise that now. I had faith in him. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe in him. When he came down to the steps of Parliament during the mandate protests, I thought, that's a good guy. That is a really good guy. And in his heart, I think he is, but he is a politician, and he hasn't followed through at all. I mean, even with this gene technology stuff that's been going on with the NZSOS, he was at the steps of Parliament. He was giving a speech, but at the end of the day, is he going to actually do anything to stop the gene technology bill? Probably not. Probably not. And that just sums it up. I mean, he's a good crowd support, and yes, he'll probably get more votes in the next election, but is it going to make any difference? Digital ID, gene technology? Nah, probably not. And that's a sad reflection of the way New Zealand is. We need a Liz Gunn in there.
Never again. It was the most brutal experience. And of course, after we put your data out, boy, did they want to bring me down. And I, like you, have experienced the corruption of the police in my own lawfare case. They did not give us all the filmed evidence. They withheld it. But mine is one case. Yours is another level again, because your case is so important for bringing out the truth, to expose that the dangers from the mRNA mean that this platform, this supposed health platform being pushed by the World Health Organization, by the UN, by Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation, must be stopped. And it really hinges on what's in this database. So I'm going to say again, one final request, Winston Peters. Who knows? You and I are older. We may not be long for this world. Why don't you leave a good legacy? Not a legacy of slickness, where, as with the gene technology bill, you said, oh, well, if we can't fix it, we'll have to get it cancelled. What does fixing it mean? Be straight up. Say, Barry Young is a brave man who's suffered now for nearly 3 years, who's been bullied and lied to and misled by the New Zealand health system and by the police. And I'm going to stand with him. Be brave, Winston. You still have a chance to be a hero on the world scene. If you would contact us, you have my number on your phone. And please help us get Barry Young's data out and stop this ridiculous persecution. Stop this case. Then I would vote for you at the next election, Winston Peters. And boy, I won't be right now, because I am so disappointed in what you did to not stand side by side with Barry Young. So we'll leave that bit there. When is your case coming up? What can people do? I'm going to ask all New Zealanders who can, if you please take a day off work, come to Wellington, and let's support Barry together again, and give a message to the judges, some of whom seem still to have integrity, some, as I experienced in my lawfare case in the District Court, Judge Janie Forrest, completely the opposite of that. It was horrifying what I went through. I do not want that to happen to you. So come on, New Zealand, let's support Barry on December the 11th. Is that right? Where are you appearing, Barry? And what is the crux of that appearance that day?
Yep. December the 11th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm having a voir dire, which is a pre-trial hearing. It's my whistleblower case. So they are just going to listen to the evidence to show that I had reasonable grounds or not to give a protected disclosure. And if they agree that it's a protected disclosure, it's done. It's over at that point. So the whole thing could end on that day. It's not going to. I guarantee you that they will come up with something to say I did not have reasonable grounds, or I didn't follow the process carefully enough, or whatever. Even though in hindsight, I ticked nearly all the boxes that were required to do that. And I will prove that in court if you all turn up. It's a small act. You can read it. It's only a few relevant sections. I did everything I could. We all did. We did everything we could under the law. There was nothing nefarious. We were not in it for any illegal, gain or anything else. We were acting with best intentions at all times. And so in the pre-trial on the 11th of December, I will prove all this to the court, and you will watch injustice unfurl. Justice has to be seen to believe, but you will not believe what you will see in this case. It will be an injustice. They will negate the Protected Disclosures Act. On this day, that act will be confined to the dustbin of history, and you will see it happen in real time. And the reason why they're going to say that is they're going to say that I did not have reasonable grounds, and that the test of the reasonable grounds is of an epidemiologist professor. And that then puts the whole act in the bin. And that applies to all whistleblowers as well. Ignore the fact that this is about the vaccine. You're either pro-vax, anti-vax. I don't care what your stance is on the vaccine. Okay, it's not about that. This is about protecting the rights of New Zealanders as whistleblowers. So if you're whistleblowing against anything that you see wrong in the workplace, whatever, if this act goes in the bin, that means you have no rights to do the right thing. It means that your reasonable grounds, if you see something wrong, and you could be working in a factory with a warehouse, Fonterra, whatever, pack and save. If you see something that is happening that is, obviously wrong, then you will not be allowed to disclose that. You will not be allowed to do a protected disclosure if this act is, banished. I think it will happen. It will happen. It will mean that it is a precedent going forward in New Zealand. They will say that, your reasonable grounds has to be, it's not at this level of a reasonable person, an ordinary person. It's going to be at the level of an expert, a professor, someone with, extreme knowledge and training. So the whole reason why the protected disclosure was enacted was for employees like me, to ordinary people, to have protection to make these disclosures. So where's that gone? And it's the whole thing is on its head as well. I said about the vaccine thing. If you're pro or anti-vax, it doesn't matter. It's just about if you believe the right thing, if you believe you're doing the right thing, then you should be protected under the law, under New Zealand law. And I realized that with me whistleblowing against the government, it's the worst possible thing to do. And this trial is it's a completely juxtaposed place to be, because they are calling me the accused, but as the way I see it now, I am not the accused. I am the accuser. It's the government who are the accused. I am accusing the government, and it's like accusing the schoolyard bully, who've got all the resources, unlimited resources to come after me.
Yes.
And that's exactly what they're doing. So they are the accused, and boy, they are not happy with it. So it's like, I am not going to get justice from this. It's different if I accused any other organization of a wrongdoing, could it be in a private company, then I would probably get justice. But because it's the government itself, it's who's the crown in this situation? Is it the prosecution? Is it the judge? Is it the police? Is it Health New Zealand? It's all of them. And they're all conspiring, they're all together. It is basically the crown, the government, I am accusing of doing this harmful act, these terrible acts to New Zealand. This, and yeah, they're like this. They're as thick as thieves together in this. So there's no way they're gonna listen to me with this. And that's a sad truth that I'm just going to have to accept. So you will see the Whistleblowers Act go in the dustbin on December the 11th. And I hope you do. I hope to see you there. It's going to be interesting anyway. It's going to be interesting to hear the words from the judge's mouth and his justification for doing this.
Do we know who the judge is? Do we have any idea?
No.
Okay, so legally...
There's a couple of good ones. I've got my fingers crossed.
Isn't that appalling when you have to pray that you get out of the lottery draw a non-corrupted, non-politicized judge? A judge, the judicial arm of government, is meant to keep the executive arm of government in check and make sure that criminals in the executive arm are called to account. And these judges have turned their backs on that sacred duty. However, as somebody with legal training, Barry, I cannot see how they can say, oh, you're not quite at this level of, university qualified expert, therefore you don't qualify under whistleblowers. As you say, it means there is no protection then for any whistleblower. They know that the electorate will work that out. And it points right back to corruption of the judiciary, and it points back to corruption within our government. It shows that Luxon and Ardern are both part of the Uni Party, that they don't answer to or protect the people of New Zealand. They answer to big pharma, corporate, and they answer to the globalists, WEF and UN. So if they do that, it really exposes them more. So they are in quite a dilemma, and it's good that we're preempting that so people can watch the case.
I know. Yeah. I know. It's like I'm about to highlight a crime. I'm going to give you the time, the date, and the location.
Yes.
So turn up to it. It's going to be a good one. So it's like they're backed into a corner. They will act exactly as I described. They have no alternative.
But you see, their actions then become, as you just said, part of covering up a clear crime. Yeah. And as I said at the time we put out your data, I said on an international interview, New Zealand is now officially a crime scene. There is evidence of criminal activity. That is the premeditated and premature deaths of New Zealand, and they're premeditated from this government who were willing to put out something that they must have known, as we know, they must have seen the data, as we can see the data, was causing excess deaths, and they've denied that. They've pretended they haven't seen it. I saw David Parker, who was one of those very collapsed Jacinda Ardern politicians. He got onto the plane and I was sitting down. He saw me and he wouldn't look at me. And I said to myself, if he comes to my aisle, I will say something to him. And sure enough, he was stopped right by my seat, my aisle row. And I said, did you work with Jacinda Ardern as one of her politicians? I knew who he was. And he went, yes. I said, what's your name? David Parker. I said, yes, I remember you. And he said, yes, I remember you. I'd met him years ago with Paul Holmes when he was kind of innocent and he looked so much more cunning, and I'm afraid he looked devious, dishonest. And I just said to him, you have blood on your hands. All of you who were in labour with Jacinda Ardern, you all have blood on your hands, and this will haunt you unless you speak up against what they did and tell the truth to the New Zealand public. It was just a moment where I could see his eyes flicking. And then he tried to draw himself up, and then he tried to do this act down to the other people and behind, I presume. Well, we know that jabs protect people. And I said, no, you don't. The evidence, study after study after study, shows they don't. Absolutely. And I said the Barry Young data, which has been suppressed, shows that these jabs did not protect New Zealanders. Absolutely shameful.
We don't even need the data that my data. There's Official Information Act requests which show that as well. And you do a lot of work with Welcome the Eagle. Alfred, is it? Alfred, Welcome the Eagle. My mind's gone blank. Albert. Yes.
He's wonderful.
And he's
incredible.
He looks at the New Zealand data as well, but there are an astonishing amount of reported adverse events. So I got one from MedSafe, and each event is counted only once. I've just got some quick data here. The classification, so it causes other medically important condition, 5,892, requires hospitalization, 5,700, disabling, incapacitating, 8,100, is life-threatening, 657, and birth
Where's
defect,
this data
8.
from,
So that's
Barry?
the total, 20,000. It's an OIA I raised. So the total 20,435 serious adverse events. These are not doubled up. These are counted only once. So these are people, individuals, 20,435 official. So I got another OIA saying how many people are vaccinated, total vaccinated, 4 million. And you know what? The 20,000 adverse events out of 4 million people means 1 in 200 vaccinated people have had a serious adverse event and reported it. So 1 in 200. Now, and this is an OIA. This is from CALM. This is from MedSafe. Any other vaccine in any other time in history with a record like that would have been instantly pulled from the shelves, would have been cancelled, would have been gone. And yet here we are. Yes. 1 in 200 serious adverse events, and that's official government data.
And we'll have David Parker standing at the next election and saying that they didn't do any harm. In other words, all of these politicians are going to keep bluffing us and lying to us until we, the people, call them out. And yeah.
How many adverse events did the unvaccinated people have? 0. And you know what? We had less deaths from COVID as well. And that's, again, official government information. And if you don't get that at this stage, then I really do wish you well. This is the government data actually saying that the COVID vaccine, you're more likely to die from COVID, and you have a 1 in 200 chance at least of having a serious adverse event. And if you're still willing to take it after all of that government data from the Official Information Act, let alone the data which, I built, then there's no hope for you. There really isn't. And I'm probably preaching to the choir here, because we're all on the same side here. But I just wish that, cognitive dissonance wasn't such a big thing in New Zealand, and that, the people who do believe that the jab is safe and effective and on the 8th or 9th booster, how are we going to get through to you? It is not safe and effective. It really isn't.
At this point, I'd like any other whistleblowers who are willing to come forward and tell your truths. Perhaps you've been working with those who've died and with their bodies and seeing clots. Perhaps you're willing to contact me. Perhaps you're a nurse or a doctor who's seeing horrendous things with fertility and dead babies being born, stillbirths, and babies who are suffering terribly. We're hearing stories out of the UK about this. Please, could you contact me, liz.gunn@freenz.org, because your evidence will back up Barry, which will then help get this data out. Now, on the data itself, Barry, one of the things we always said was we can't possibly cover the enormity of what is in your database. But if we get it out to the public, then epidemiologists around the world and in New Zealand and statisticians will start to pull it apart and find their truths. That was one of our plans. And that was stopped. Yeah. That was stopped because the New Zealand government stopped it. I mean, I know in the first weeks they pulled down all of Kevin McKiernan's database over in America because he was trying to download it, even though it was fully anonymized. So we want that data out there so people can actually analyze it and find new truths, new layers of truth themselves. There is still much to be discovered, you said earlier, in your database, isn't there? There is much that hasn't yet been put out in public.
Yep. I mean, this is tip of the iceberg stuff. There is a lot more in there. But there's enough already to show that it should be withdrawn immediately from use. It's not safe and effective. It's not fit for purpose. It doesn't work like the AstraZeneca one was. There's no difference to this one. This is a bad product, and it's killing people.
Could we talk about the clusters? Because I did allude to those earlier, and I think that more than anything hit in with people I've spoken to who are still wanting to believe the government lies and the media lies. And this is for mainstream media in New Zealand. The BBC is being put on the dock, as it were, in the dock, under the spotlight in the UK, because it has clearly lied about the truth about the jab and the jab injured. And so it's the same thing that applies here to Radio New Zealand and TVNZ. You need to start telling the truth. So let's tell them what the clusters are about. And they might start reporting it, if only to cover their own backsides in this scandal about mainstream media lying through the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, well, there are hundreds of clusters. And what I mean by a cluster is that if people are vaccinated sequentially, i.e. one after the other, at a place on a certain date, one after the other, if there's more than 3 who die within 12 months, that's then I would consider that a cluster. It's an unusual event. You're going to get, obviously people die, but when you have an event so close together, like if you're vaccinated 3 times, or 3 people are vaccinated and they all die within a month or a year, then that is extremely unlikely. And the more people who are vaccinated like that, the more clusters there are, the more unlikely it is. So if you've got, I'll give you one quick example. On the 18th of July 2022, 40 individuals aged between 65 and 101 were vaccinated, one after the other, at a mobile vaccination site. And I'm not going to give the name of the site. So that there's no breach of data there. No one's names are going to be mentioned or anything like that. Just 40 people between 65 and 101, all vaccinated. All 40 died within 12 months. And from baseline mortality, you can look at the expected rates, and then you can compare the two. So of a random group of 40 individuals, you'd expect, 6 deaths in 1 year, okay, between those age groups. You'd expect 6 people to die. But in this group of 40, all 40 of them died. Now that is not possible. So the chance of 40 out of 40 people dying from chance is less than 1 in a trillion. Those are the odds of that happening in the real world. And yet we've got dozens and dozens of examples like this. In that data of 2.2 million people, there are clusters where the chances of this happening are trillions and trillions and trillions to 1 against. Lots and lots of them. So, yeah, I mean, that's just one example. And that's one way to look at the data, the statistics.
The clusters are really, the clusters are so shocking, Barry. The clusters, I remember saying to people, I saw one in Invercargill, and I won't say the name of the place, but it was the small city in the deep south of New Zealand. And you saw these anonymized, numbered vaccinators. We didn't have their names, but they were just putting in the same chemist shop, They're putting jab after jab after jab, minute after minute after minute. And because your database was recording the payment per dose, it had to record the time of the dose. And you saw sometimes 2 jabs in 1 minute. You saw 2 jabs 1 minute apart. There was clearly no due diligence being done. There was clearly no, do you have any contraindications? How's your health? Are you able to take these sorts of ingredients? There was nothing. It was just get the jabs in, get the money from the government for jabbing, and get the people out of the shop. And it was so irresponsible. And I think we worked out in that cluster, it was the equivalent of a busload of people that died within 6 months. It was also statistically, they won't say it's impossible, but it is as near to impossible as you can have, statistically speaking.
Yes.
And there were many, many examples in your data of those sorts of clusters. They are a key to showing that it was the jab that was causing the harm. They are an absolute key.
Yes.
I'm going to say again, Barry, this data needs to go out to New Zealanders to stop the mRNA in New Zealand, but it needs to go out to the world urgently.
Yep. And that's the whole thing about statistics and probability. In the absence of any other event, what has to be the cause of these people dying? In the absence of anything else, they didn't all have cancer. They didn't all have life-threatening diseases. There were just a group of 40 random people. Yes, they were old, but then again, you look at the statistics for old people. Six of them were expected to die, not 40. So, in the absence of all of the things, Occam's razor, what is the cause? What is the root cause of this? And the only thing that it can be is the vaccine itself. And if you drill down into it, it's like you can say, well, why was that sudden group of 40 people who die, and yet the next lot didn't? You can look at batch numbers and other variables, and there's all sorts of things to look at if you drill down into it, but no one's prepared to do that. And there are indications that batches may be different, maybe slightly different, or the way they're stored, cold storage, cold chain storage, all the rest of it, how they were shipped, how they're transported, how they were handled. Were they kept in a fridge overnight or whatever? How old was the batch? There's a million questions. How were even the vaccinators? Were they trained? How were they trained? Did they aspirate the needles properly? Did they inject into the muscle or the vein? A million things to ask. A million. And we're not doing that. It's like we're don't look here, look here. We're just completely oblivious to it. And that's cognitive dissonance. We are just, It's difficult.
It's worse than that legally. It's criminal negligence. And the people who are pushing this, which points right to Jacinda Ardern and her government, they could be accused of manslaughter because they were criminally negligent in putting this out without doing any due diligence around the research or the follow-up research. It's absolutely horrifying. And I think that's a real call to New Zealanders to stand with Barry on December the 11th. If you possibly can, please come to Wellington. Please support him inside and outside the court. Make your own signs saying, we demand that the Barry Young data be released to New Zealanders right now. Christopher Luxon, are you really complicit with Jacinda Ardern in this COVID vaccine criminality? If you are not, you will demand that this court case against Barry Young be dropped, that he be upheld as a legitimate, and obviously is, according to the law as it stands, a legitimate whistleblower. You will demand that the judicial arm of our government operate at the highest levels of honesty and integrity, and we the people will demand that too, Barry. I think they will be terribly exposed if they don't deem you a whistleblower. You qualify in every single way as a whistleblower. And if they don't uphold that, then they make a complete fool of themselves and of the law and of this government. So it's an extremely risky strategy if they don't uphold you as a whistleblower. But we will be there on the 11th of December. Any other messages, Barry, just to finish off today?
I really appreciate your support and your help. And God bless you. And God bless everyone who's watching this. Thank you.
It's beautiful. I'll back that up. All of you who have stood with Barry in New Zealand and around the world, who care deeply that this good man, this honourable man who has never done anything wrong and still has done nothing wrong, all he has done is tell the truth to the world. I appreciate that you stand with him. Please send your messages underneath this interview and we'll make sure Barry sees them all. Messages of support, messages of love, and follow the case closely and we'll keep you updated. Barry Young, you're a hero. You've done the right thing.
Oh, thank you.
It's wonderful. I'll see you on the 11th, Baz. I'll see you on the 11th.
Bright and early. I'll be there.
This is an ex-post from Barry Young. Dear New Zealand Police and New Zealand National Party, the COVID vaccine is causing dramatic excess deaths and serious injuries. I tried to raise this as a protected disclosure due to my position as Senior DBA, database analyst at Health New Zealand, responsible for the New Zealand database showing this clear and undeniable record level data. You responded by sending 8 armed police to break into my house and violently arrest me. I have now waited over 700 days for a trial. Please set a date so that the people may hear and see this. The truth will set me free.